Hey, hope you're doing well. I had a student this past week that was doing something unique. It's not very often anymore, to be honest. I've been doing this over 20 years, tens of thousands of hours on the court with students, and over 10 years using video like exclusively every single time I coach. It's not very often I see something new. Like, man, I haven't seen that before. So I want to show you this forehand. It's a unique new way that I've seen somebody use small body parts excessively and not use the kinetic chain the best way possible. So this is a 3-5 player for context. And if I just show you her original contact point, you would say, wow, I mean, if you study technique, you'd be like, are you sure that's a 3-5 player? And it was so funny for me looking through her kind of original. So this is original, like the first forehands that I saw her hitting. And it's unbelievably rare for shoulders to be facing forwards and for the hips to be facing forwards at contact, like in general, much less for a 3-5 player. So looking at this, it looks like she's nailed her kinetic chain, right? Here's the unique part. If I go back into her setup, and I want you to watch her right elbow and watch how early her right elbow starts the trip forwards. You see how it's pushing forwards? Nothing has happened yet with her shoulders. Nothing has happened yet with her hips. And yet her arm and her elbow has already moved like 6 inches forwards. And what she's doing here is she's just pushing the racket forward with her elbow and with her arm. Now, usually when club level amateur players start this early with small parts of the body just stays there. And the arm just kind of continues doing all the work and just shoves the racket forwards. And so what ends up happening is essentially like a sideways body position at contact. Like I've seen a million different people do that, where the body stays sideways or like some amount of sideways, and the arm and the hand just end up shoving and pushing the racket forwards. But what's really unique and kind of special about this player, who, by the way, is a great athlete overall, and so she figured out a way to lead with the arm and lead with the elbow before the body did anything. And then actually, look at how far ahead her elbow is here. And by now, her body is starting to turn, but her arm and her elbow is so far out in front that she's using significant like effort and energy. And what she told me heading into this coaching before I even saw her swing a racket was, she told me her forehand was her weakest shot. And she said, I just feel like I'm swinging so hard, but the ball doesn't go anywhere. Like I'm trying with a lot of effort, but I just can't hit the ball hard. Why am I trying so hard, but I can't hit the ball hard? I see all these other high level players and they're hitting the ball hard and it doesn't look like they're trying at all. Why does it feel like I'm trying so much, but when I watch my forehand, it's just not a very big or powerful shot. So if all I had ever seen of her was this position, and she told me that feedback, I'd be like, what in the world? What are you talking about? Like, this looks unbelievably strong and athletic. And like the body must have led the arm, right? Like her hips and her shoulders must have gone first and her arm must have followed. Anyway, just super unique here. Like how early the arm goes, and she still figures out a way to get her body around in time. And so it's kind of a hybrid. Like she's kind of using a hybrid, sideways body arming, like in air quotes, like an arming forehand with a kinetic chain, like a proper kinetic chain forehand. She's kind of like combining them into a hybrid. So just kind of remember this position right here, and I'll show you what she looked like after a little bit of practice together and training. So here's after, I don't know, 45 minutes or so of working on her forehand. Still great contact position, and her shoulders are facing forwards, her hips are facing forwards. Like she was already doing that. We'll get how much further out in front she's making contact, and it's because, watch this time, how now her arm doesn't start going forwards until her shoulders are turning it. So you see how now there's a connection between her shoulders turning and her elbow going forwards. So now her elbow is going forwards because her shoulders are turning. And because her hips are turning, her arm is going forwards. And so now, and by the end of us working together, she was hitting just as big a forehands as she was with full effort with me before, but with like half effort, or maybe only 30-40% effort. And she's just on this particular one, just making it look real easy. But her contact point is so strong, and she was moving her body already well, but she was short-circuiting it by her arm jumping out in the lead. And her arm, like jumping the gun, starting the race, or like kind of leading the parade before the body really got moving. And so this is why video is necessary. It's so essential. If you're not routinely breaking down your students' strokes, or if you are a student, if your coach isn't routinely breaking down your strokes and freezing them, going frame by frame, the human like eyes and brain don't work fast enough to be able to pick up on these kind of details and nuances of like what is going first and by how much, like what's really doing the work. It's so hard to figure that out for sure. If you're very experienced, you can have an idea of what's happening. You can have like a very educated guess about what's happening in that quarter of a second. But you don't know for sure, and it's hard to give the best feedback possible to a student. By the way, this student's taken she's been playing for decades, taken tons of lessons. Nobody ever broke this down and explained it to her. So for me, this is just like a perfect case study for why video is so necessary. Why, if you've never seen yourself on video, or you're not routinely seeing yourself on video, you're missing things. And it's especially tricky because in some phases of a swing or a motion, you could be crushing it, looking incredibly good. But there's a lot of details that you might miss that could actually point to things being totally opposite and kind of backwards of what they should be. So anyway, interesting case study. Just wanted to share. Maybe I'll make a full-fledged kind of lesson out of this one, but maybe not. I don't know. It's an interesting one. Tell me what you think. Would you like to see a full like kind of breakdown of this on the main channel? I think it's really interesting, but I don't know. Little details might not be super exciting for your average viewer of instruction on the internet. Thanks for watching. Hopefully this was helpful. I'll talk to you again soon. Keep up the great work on your game.